another draft science presentation, part two essentially to the reading of something, simply science or something. Anyway, a couple of comments first on the part one. One thing I love about springtime is going outside and getting fresh air and sunlight. So this has nothing to do with anything. Obviously we know that a lot of good scientists didn't do any of that crap, and that's why they were good scientists, because they did a lot of science. Newton, for example. But anyway, one of the great things about being alive, obviously, I mean, I'm fairly tanned already, and it's New Jersey. Okay, so I've gotten some sun. I was outside all day yesterday. But anyway, it's just such a useless pile of crap argument. I'm so glad I'm not a flat universer, right? I'm so glad I'm not a dupish, unicorn molester, phantasmagorical unicorn molester, fanatic, phantasmagorical unicorn molester. I mean, you're just like silly Muslims with 3-foot-long beards, smoking opium. You're just retards. Retards. Anyway. I mean, it's just a religion. That's all you've done. You've sit there and say you have faith in your religion. There's nothing else going on. This voter can it's just whatever that is. Again, so these are how honest people behave on the internet. They have names like voter. That's what honest people do, is they created 17 accounts, voter 1, voter 2. That's what the honest defenders of right, that's how they behave. That's what the Long Ranger would be doing, if he lived today. Yeah. That's what he would be doing, is trolling the internet. I don't think so. Alright, anyway. Treasure trove. Just unbelievable. Then a bunch of space for no good reason. So some more contrivances, more gimmicks. You just can't do anything honestly. You have to apply the gimmick. You say at one point that the Schrodinger equation doesn't account for the double slit pattern. Yes, obviously it doesn't. There's no variables in it for it. There's no capacity for it to produce anything but one result. You do understand that. It only has these number of variables: the distance to the target, the width of the slit, or the impediment. You could switch the two. But obviously if you switch the two in the double slit, then you don't have a variable for the other thing. And in the Schrodinger equation applied to the double slit experiment, there's no variable for the width of the slits. It has to be assumed because there's no place to put it in the equation. I mean, clearly an incomplete equation, right? I mean, how is it inappropriate to use the word an incomplete equation when it doesn't even have a place for a variable is going to affect the pattern? I mean, obviously if I change the width of the slits in the double slit, I'm going to change the pattern. Yet the Schrodinger equation can't account for it because you used up the relevant variable with the width of the impediment. So it's that far from being complete. And yet you people will argue this obnoxiously about something so obviously incomplete. Even though he posted a link to a derivation. So again, these derivations are supposed to mean something to somebody. The whole point is they never do their derivations with real numbers. That is, they never actually test the thing to see if it works. And they especially, you can see like Professor Lewin do that, because when he does test it, he tests it with the real easy one, right? He goes to the place where he knows the answer is going to be right. He doesn't go to the place where the single slit pattern reduces the destructive interference to double destructive interference, because that won't be predicted by the equation, and so he'll get the answer wrong then. So if he actually puts real numbers in for places, certain places, he won't get the right answer. So he quote mines the results, quite obviously. He quote mines the experiment to sit there and make it look like it's accurate When, oh no, I can make it look just as inaccurate by just moving a quarter of an inch to another location and he'll get the wrong answer. And that's a fact. That's just a fact. You're just such liars. I mean, damn it. To put that in capital letters, even though he posted a link to the derivation, again, which again isn't an answer, isn't solving an equation at all. All it is reducing an equation to different variables. So you have certain variables and you're trying to find other variables. Well, if I give you all the variables, then you don't have to do a derivation, do you? Anyway, in that very post, how are you so disingenuous? So I'm disingenuous by pointing out how you're quote mining evidence all over the place, and that's all you're doing, and that when you really test it, it doesn't work. Okay, you've seen the photon pattern show a gradual pattern. No, I haven't seen any such thing, liar. Okay, when Peter was talking about blocking the slit experiment, again, the only experiment I've seen that ever does that is the one where the little things are circles. Did you notice that again? So we're back to the circle argument. This is something you still haven't explained. Why, in some cases, are there little circles of light, and in other cases, they're bars of light. Have you explained that? No. Okay, slit experiment that you denied was comprised of real data. No, I denied that yes, it was a real representation of the experiment, and I pointed that out. I pointed out how there's more quote mining of the evidence. So you want to do that again? You want to just reiterate the point, right? That it doesn't matter. I can point out the truth. It's not the real data. It's an incomplete picture. They took a little slice out of the data. So taking little slices out of the data is honest. That's the way to present evidence, is to take little slices out, to quote mine the evidence. So your question that the electron pattern is different is false. Well, it's basically not a false, it says false premise. No, it's not a false premise, and we could just go to Google. I can show you the two patterns. I've already done all this, so I don't think there's any point in being redundant. But I mean, just go to Google, put in double slit, and you'll see some patterns that look really smooth, and then some patterns look really bar-like. Well, the difference is the ones that are really smooth are electron patterns, and the ones that are really bar-like are photon patterns. So again, that's just a basic fact that you're denying, and doing it overtly. Okay, at this point, basically a lie. So again, I'm the liar by pointing out what is just overt fact. The two patterns are very different looking. Okay, here's you denying the gradual pattern. So here we go. I mean, let's go to the videotape. The single slit pattern as... So I pointed out how, oh, wait a minute. You know, it took me a while to see it. And I said, wait a minute. Do you see these two lower lines? They're going back up right over here. They're going back up. So here they've shown it as if it's just a clump. There is no pattern. It's just a clump, the single slit clump. And I point out, oh, wait a minute. This is a double slit pattern. And what they did is they cut it off. There's a clump here. There's a bump over here. And there's a bump over here. So they've quote mined the evidence. So he says that's the real data. The real data is taking a sliver of the image. The real data of an elephant is just to look at the trunk. Just cut the trunk out. Forget about everything else. Forget about the big giant teeth. Forget about the big giant butt. No, it's just, this is elephant. Elephant is just trunk. And then you can prove it because look at the picture. It's just a trunk. It's just as dishonest, and here it's overtly, and here he is pointing to it and saying, look at me, pointing out how they quote mined the evidence. And he's using this as evidence against me? Where I'm clearly correct, they quote mined the evidence. They didn't show the real data. They showed a perversion of the real data. A tiny segment of the real data. They showed the bottom of the elephant's foot. God, you people are just so dishonest. Oh, okay. And he says, P.S. The data focuses only on the middle slit. So here I'm making the accusation that you're quote mining the data. You use the term real data. There it says it, real data. And you think the real data is to show a tiny portion of the data. That's how bizarre your definition of words is. You think that's doing real data. The real data is just a piece of the data. Okay, and it looks at what happens at that spot. So again, he's just validating my point as if he's making a point by saying exactly what I'm saying you're guilty of, and you're just basically pointing out, yes, we're exactly guilty of that. That's exactly what we did. We cut the data, we took out the segment that we like, that agrees with our theory, and we ignored the part that doesn't agree with our theory. So you did exactly what I'm accusing you of. You've just done it right in front of everybody's fucking faces, and yet you people will say you have some kind of thing called integrity? Oh, God, I don't know. There's nothing I can say, but God, you're just so fucking hateable. What the fuck is that crap? So yeah, I'm deleting this garbage. All right. I mean, you know, God, you people are just so dishonest. It's like Piro showing up with that stupid wave. Well, look, when you put in completely agitated water into two slits, you get a single slit, you get diffraction out. Yeah, you put diffraction in, you get diffraction out. Duh. Oh, that's the real data. No, that's the contrived, manipulated data. So dishonest. All right. So I was at I don't see it here. Okay, yeah, electromagnetic radiation is gravity. Okay, that's where we left off. All right, the emission of electromagnetic radiation by atoms is described quantum mechanically by the process of stimulated and spontaneous emission. So that you're comfortable as a physicist with the word spontaneous. You really think something just spontaneously happens, that everything isn't cause and effect. You don't believe in cause and effect. You think you have enough evidence to say cause and effect isn't happening anymore, and things just pop. They just do it for no reason. There's no mechanism. There's no cause. You know, I'm sorry. I think that's silly physics. I think that's pseudoscience. That's just saying, you know, there's an invisible God, and he forced the, you know, he forced the whatever the half humans to interact with each other to create the real human. You know, you're just making up a story. All right, you'll find a wealth of detail about this in any atomic physics textbook. So again, you're going into all this crap with your textbooks. I've read your textbooks. I've watched Professor Lewin videos. I've watched Susskind videos, and I've watched Yale videos. Literally hundreds of them. Okay, lectures. And it's not there. So you can keep saying it's there, and I've shown what's there. Okay, and what's there is an interpretation of effects. Like with Professor Lewin in the radar experiment. He's interpreting the effect. He's saying, yes, we have an effect. I'll agree, you have an effect. Now, the effect can be explained as simple jamming of two signals because you're trying to tune in a signal. And if you send two signals from two different places and they're out of phase, of course it's going to be jammed. You're not going to be able to receive either one because the radio transmitter can't do that. The antenna is stupid. The antenna is just a stick. The stick's getting hit and it wobbles at a certain frequency. It can't tell that, oh, there's two different things hitting me? Oh, I couldn't tell that. Yeah, it can't tell that. So there's no data in the antenna that's saying, oh, it's two separate signals hitting it. No, it can't tell. It just knows bullets are hitting it. It doesn't know where they're from or that they're different shooters. Oh, God. You're just stupid. Well, anyway. Stimulated emissions is when a photon couples with a dipole moment to the dipole moment of an orbital electron. So you think this happens. You have absolutely no evidence that photons couple to a dipole moment or do any of this stuff. You don't have a diagram of it. You don't have anything to explain it at all. And I'm arguing clearly that we do know these are all straight line forces. We know photons do hit electrons. And we know that they don't perturbate electrons. We know they don't half influence an electron. The photon is either absorbed as energy or it's reflected as energy. But the energy either goes in or the energy comes out. It either stays in or it goes out. But it can't do both. All right, causing it to de-excite. So this is all just stuff you made up. This is your story. I have a story. I have a competing explanation for how photons and electrons function. My story says the energy's always hitting the electron. They're always in gravity, so to speak, in their charge field. And all you can do is in a sense, do exactly what gravity does. If I put one single thing in the universe all by itself, it's going to be hit by force and it's going to radiate force. It's going to reflect it. It's going to reach a thermal equilibrium. It's going to reach equilibrium as a charged entity. And if I put something else in that field, that something else will block energy from some directions, in the sense that it will, in a sense, absorb it. And every time it moves a little bit towards the one object, it's going to create an absence of energy, because the energy that is moving it is now absorbed energy. It didn't travel the speed of light to the other object. It clearly got shadowed by it. And now the other object's going to feel more pressure on one side than it's going to feel on the other side, and it's going to move towards it. Now that theory perfectly fits the evidence. Now, your wacky theory that none of that happens, that some sort of coupling happens in some sort of ambiguous way with some kind of wavy perturbation in a field of some kind, finds its moment, its magnetic moment, right? An electron is negatively charged, and yet you're giving it dipole properties. You can only have a magnetic moment if you're magnetic. If you're a dipole, where is there any evidence that electrons are dipoles? Oh, that's right, there is no evidence. So you're not even getting your jargon right. Anyway, de-excite and release electromagnetic radiation of energy equal to the difference in energy of the electric states. So they're talking about dipole moments, which are clearly magnetic moments, and then talking about electric states. Now, what sense does that even make? None. Okay. Causing it to de-excite. Oh, you mean change what orbital it's in? Which I'm not, I won't say that that's a wrong description, but, and frankly, all it really is about pressure. So these are just pressure positions of how much pressure the bit is in. And as I've pointed out before, you can get a simple view of what's happening by just understanding that if you put a bunch of magnets between two plates of glass, with their tails all up or their heads all up or whatever, so they're all repulsive to each other, that you can clearly put a mass of them together and then move one more magnet in, and all the other magnets will move. This is what electrons are really doing. Electrons are like dipoles fixed in a position, so they can't turn. And so they're always going to radiate a certain kind of either north face magnet or south face magnet. Now, once you simulate that, that's really the function of protons and electrons. They're caught in tension. The electrons want to get to the protons, but they're repulsive to each other, the electrons, so they can't get any closer without getting closer to other electrons. And they don't want to do that. That's the tension that holds it together. There's no spinning crap. There's no orbiting crap. That's all stuff you just made up. Those are your stories describing what you think causes the effect. But it's not what you know is causing the effect. It's what you think is causing the effect. It's your speculation. It's not your proven theory. And here you are demeaning and insulting people because they don't accept your religion. All right. To understand spontaneous emission properly. Now, there's no way to properly understand silly, mushy bullshit. There's no spontaneous anything. It's a bullshit word. Any scientist using it is just showing how they're really not scientists. They're just regurgitating what they've been taught. You've never really thought about it. To use the word spontaneous, in my opinion, as in a serious manner, in anything but casual speak, is just to point out you've never really thought about the physics, because it's impossible to cognize spontaneous. It can't be done. You can't make your brain show me spontaneous. It won't do it. There's no image of it because it's nonsense. It's fairies. It's ghosts. It's hobgoblins. It's just bullshit as a word. It's a word of archaic ignorance. The old people of the past who didn't know anything about anything in detail, they could use a word like spontaneous because they had no explanation. We know better. All right. And indeed, even the entire notion of wave-particle duality requires us to quantize the electromagnetic field. Well, again, there's nothing wrong with quantizing energy. The fact that you people are confusing quanta with waves is your bad. Okay, the quanta part is fine. I don't have any objections to Planck, Planck. Okay, perfectly rational deductions to recognize that there's some indivisibility that exists in the function of the fundamental universe. The fundamental universe is actually made of something. It's not fucking Horton Hears a Who, okay? We don't have Hoobies living on dust balls. The mechanics is a structure in the small universe. It's not just another version of the fractal. In doing so, you will find that it has 0-point energy, which, so this is, you're actually using this jargon, 0-point energy. And you think that's really cool jargon? You think that's really a cool descriptive term? I think it's a nonsense pile of rubbish. 0 point, what could that ever mean? And ever putting the word zero next to the word energy is, again, non sequitur retarded. It is the interaction with the vacuum state. So again, this more nonsense about something called the vacuum state. All crap you've made up, just like your expanding universe. Oh yeah, there's space that just pops into the space. There's just space is created everywhere there's space. There's just more space made. Even though the atoms don't get further apart, and I mean, somehow this expanding universe doesn't happen inside the atoms. It's certainly not happening inside the black hole, or it wouldn't be the size of a grapefruit, right? I mean, this is such nonsense that causes spontaneous emission. I just can't believe you even wrote this paragraph. It is, to me, that just defines that you're just one of the suckers, one of the dupes. You're just a Catholic, doing your whatever. What do they call that crap they do? Concentration. I can't remember the name of it. Commencement? No. Catechism. You're just doing your catechism-y thing. Oh, see the above comment. What? To laugh again? Or to say, oh man, it really is idiocracy. This is what scientists do. They use words like spontaneous and then talk about 0-point energy. I mean, that's an Eric Dullard word. I mean, that's a real pseudoscience nonsense term. I'm not sure why you think spin is not spin. Well, because all the physicists say so. Oh, hey, look, we don't mean it's actually spinning. We mean spin is a quantity, a way of its behaving. It tends to go left or it tends to go right, and we're going to call that spin. You really think that all the physicists routinely say, oh yeah, when we say spin, we mean it's actually spinning. Spin is spin. Okay, says you. I can play lots of physicists who say, no, you can't take the word too seriously. All right, anyway. If you're referring to the fact that it does not represent some rational motion, rotational motion of the electron around an internal axis, that's correct. So again, he says spin is spin, and yet it doesn't have anything to do with things that spin. So we have a rational definition. So it's like waves, right? We have a rational definition of what a wave is. Feynman made this sort of point. I mean, waves have a definition, right? I mean, waves spread. Waves dilute over time. Waves have certain properties, okay? All the waves that we knew about, in the history of mankind were waves in a medium, and they all had rules of the medium. Obviously, photonic waves aren't behaving like that at all. It's some sort of new wave that can be a laser beam wave. It's only waving in one tiny vector. Now, obviously, there's no waves that we knew of that do that. So using the word wave is kind of bullshit because it's not the same thing. Now here we have the word spin. Everybody knows what spinning is. Spinning wheels, spinning tops, spinning typhoons, spinning things. And now he's saying, no, spinning doesn't have anything to do with rotation. No, spin is now our new word that has to do with some kind of new thing that doesn't have anything to do with what you think the word spin means. So they're breaking the vocabulary right here in front of our faces. They're perverting and distorting the meaning of words. And it's all okay with you people. He's perfectly comfortable to say something this stupid. Spin is spin. But by spin, I don't mean anything to do with this rotational crap. What is that? That's correct. It does not. Yeah, so he says spin is spin, but it doesn't have anything to do with rotating. Amazing. We just call it spin because it helps us draw a useful analogy. So I mean, I've obviously pointed out how it's not spin. He tells me spin is spin, and then he basically says, no, spin isn't spin. Fuck. See, sorry, I had to do a little reboot. This is crazy. Okay, we just call it spin because it helps us draw a useful analogy. Yeah, it's helpful to, again, have a completely inaccurate notion of reality, because that's what physics is trying to do, is just create nonsensical. We'll just have, instead of blaming person's campfire for the forest fire, we'll just blame the gremlins. All right, and spin is very closely related to angular momentum. Well, again, no, it's all it's really related to is going left or going right, going up, going down. Okay, half spin means that the quantum number, this is just such crap. S is associated with the eigenvalues of spin operator and equal to 1/2, etc. Yeah, yes, just more gibberish and nonsense. You don't even have evidence that these stupid things exist, these quarks and all this other crap. You have no direct evidence. Again, it's all effects, and then you're making deductions about what the effect means. You're saying, well, the positron can't be a proton because we've decided that we know exactly what happens to a proton when you shoot through a 1/4 inch of lead. And so we know that it can't possibly come out of the lead at a certain amount of time because we know exactly what's happening inside the lead. And it's just your presumptions. But you really have no evidence that there's any such thing as a positron. Here's an experimental paper on quantum entanglement. Yes, absolute rubbish. So there's no experimental paper. I mean, so yeah, let's go laugh at it. Oh, I can't open the damn link without breaking the page. There's are literally hundreds, so I'm sure you can find plenty more to look at on Google Scholar. So again, I don't need to look at them. I've already done that. And I've pointed out how they're all dependent on polarization. And you go all the way back to the Allen Aspect experiment, which hasn't been repeated, by the way, because Allen Aspect thinks he created some, it's my patented spinning mirror beam splitter. Spinning mirror beam splitter. And so you look at those experiments and you think that's what's called hard evidence. These experiments depended on strangled technology. I mean, pushing the very limits of our technical capacity and doing it over and over and over again in a sequence of events where somebody claims I shot a photon over here and 15 meters away I received exactly the same photon. You think somebody can do that? I think that's a preposterous claim. All right. Polarization. Oh, great. So let's get to that subject. In its context, in this context. So what context does it have to do with? We're talking about light polarization. It has to be functioning in some way. There's a physical cause. No, we can't even agree on that, right? I'm claiming there's an actual physical process. Okay, so when light goes through a polarizing filter, something's happening to it. Okay, the light has a certain shape or form, and a certain thing happens to it when it goes through the filter. And it seems quite obvious to deduce from the evidence of putting the third filter in at an angle that clearly the filters are affecting the photons. Clearly. They're not just measuring them. They're not just passively filtering. They're actively changing. And there goes the quality of any experiment using polarization. Obviously, you can't use polarization as a way of detecting something when the fact is that your polarizing filters are producing something. They're changing the light. You can't do a controlled experiment when you're changing, okay, the stuff in the experiment. That's just basic logic. From what I can remember, I've seen you refer to polarization as having something to do with the shape of particles. Well, that's in the past. Obviously, over the last 10 years, my understanding or my theory has been refined and the details are getting better and better. And one of the better details is that polarization has really to do with how the light is produced. The light is made out of more than one quanta, okay? And the quanta of the light are produced. And when they're produced, the electron that's producing them is actually moving. So there's distance in the alignment. So instead of the alignment being perfect, the alignment's a bit off. That's polarization. So the longer the frequency, the more time between the quanta, the more likely the electron has moved more, and therefore the alignment of the quanta is broken, more variance. That's polarization. Alright, this essentially has no meaning, as elementary particles are point-like. So again, you say so. So another declaration. So he says he knows that elementary particles, fundamental particles of the universe, electrons, protons, he knows their shape. He knows that photons have a shape, even though there's fucking wavical perturbations. He's saying he knows what they are. He knows their shape. And I say you have nothing but made up. You have no evidence dictating what shape they are at all. You don't even understand how they function, in my opinion, in any kind of rational way. You don't understand what charge is caused by. You don't understand that that's reflected energy. The reason why electrons hate each other is because they're reflecting the same energy. And because it's a ping pong battle argument. It's just so obvious this is how it's happening, right? It's two ping pong paddles, and there's a ping pong ball trapped between them. The closer I bring them together, if the ping pong ball has a constant speed, always goes the speed of light, you can understand that there's more force hitting the paddle the closer I bring the two paddles together. So it's like magic. It's like spooky action. I move this paddle, and this paddle feels more pressure. Amazing. But that's what really will happen. If the ping pong ball has a constant mass and a constant velocity, well, all I have to do is bring the paddles closer together, and there's more energy hitting this paddle. That explanation solves the effect question. It explains it perfectly. It perfectly explains what we observe. And yet you're saying, I know that's not the right answer. And how do you know that? Crickets. You don't have any way of knowing that. You're just an arrogant fanatic. You're saying your God is God, and that's it. I have no interest in hearing anything that's not about my Jeebus. This essentially has no meaning as elementary particles are point-like. No, they're not. And have no volume or shape. I say that's absolute nonsense. So this is their physics. So again, I'm just saying to this honest observer, did you know that physics doesn't believe that things have a shape and a real form? That they've basically declared everything in the universe made of mush? And he asked me before why I think it's mush. Well, because you're basically saying the universe is made out of mush. Undefinable, unshaped, unformed mush. Now, I didn't think physics believed that as a kid. I thought they really did think it was a physical universe and everything had a physical function and its whole properties were defined by its shape and its what it was made out of. I always thought that's what physics was, that it was a hard science, not a mush science. But clearly they're pointing out, no, we've gone full mush. Okay, it's now ludicrous mush. Full ludicrous mush ahead. It's okay, anyway. Amazing. No volume or shape. I mean, yes, you're in the standard model. Right, and you tell me the standard model is the answer. It's a great solution. I say if that's what you call great physics, fuck you. Yeah, that's all I can say. That's a religion. You don't have any evidence of any of that crap. You haven't proven it. You haven't demonstrated it. You haven't come into this courtroom and drawn me a picture of it. Well, you can't draw me a picture of it. It's all fucking mush. Well, the mush is mushing over to the mushy area over here mushing by the mush factor. The mush geometry forces the mush to move to the other mush's location. It's mush. All right. The three polarizing filter experiment is very well understood. No, it isn't very well understood. If it was very well understood, they would admit the obvious truth. So that's another, just, again, another one of these preposterous exaggerations. Show me, okay, the physicist explaining it in a very well understood manner. Show me that, please. Show me. Link me to that video, okay? in the context of mainstream quantum theory. Oh, in quantum theory. Oh, not in actual practical, meaningful, rational explanation. Oh, I can't copy it. Okay, I remember. Oh, so annoying. Control C. I'll save myself having to type out an explanation and just leave the link. Yes, you already did that a few times. And you're telling me this link will have a rational explanation of introducing the third filter. And I'll say, no, it won't. It'll just have your made-up Little Red Riding Hood story bullshit. In fact, it further goes to prove, it doesn't prove anything, but whatever, the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics. So just more nonsense. We're already accepting that there's probabilities. Okay, the point is what's causing the probability. So they keep manipulating language. So they use the word probabilistic nature when they really mean random nature. They really mean to use a word that describes the fact that they think it's spontaneous and they think that it has no character, that there are no real causes. There's just spontaneous that happens, and the spontaneous causes the effect. So it's spontaneous probabilistic. No source probability is what he's arguing for. I would probably use different language here, but whatever. Physicists did not think that the spectrum diverged because A, it was unphysical. Amazing statement. Yeah, it would be nice if physicists gave a shit about actual physical shit. But yeah, obviously you don't. The observed spectrum looked completely different. So I don't know what exactly he's referencing, but yes, no, I'm not doing this time code thing, so sorry. You should be able to quote somebody. There is no classical or even quantum field theory limit to the frequency a photon can have. Well, see, that's, again, this is more like your infinite well to create your massive black holes. It's just an assumption you've made. And I would argue that to have infinities in your physics is to basically say it's not physics anymore. It's not a physical universe anymore. Because the physical universe is basically saying, no, there's one moon, there's one Earth. The Earth isn't infinite, the moon isn't infinite. The universe is made of things that have limits. It isn't made out of things that have infinities. So it's just nonsense. There is no classical or even quantum field theory limit to the frequency a photon can have. So again, there's obviously, in my opinion, that's just nonsense. Because the quanta, there's rules about how it can be produced. It's being produced by an electron. The electron's motion has limits, speed limits certainly, and those speed limits probably have a great deal to do with whether or not a quanta can be produced at certain distances. There is no classical or even quantum field theory limit to the frequency a photon can have. Right, you don't have any limits on gravity either, but you don't understand what gravity is, that it's a limited force. There's a certain amount of pressure the universe creates, just like there's a certain amount of cosmic background radiation. There's not an infinite amount, and there's not an infinitesimal amount. There's a certain amount, and there's a certain amount of all this stuff. There is no infinities. There is no observational limit either, so that's just silly. We can't even observe a photon, and he says there's no observational limit to how close the quanta that make up a photon can be to each other. I mean, just absolute nonsense. Yes, efficient creation of high-energy radiation is quite difficult, although physicists have gotten very good at it by now. Just sort of irrelevant to my point. My point is that electrons have to be in very unstable states in terms of their vibration to be vibrating at these high frequencies. So, that's why there's a lot of X-rays coming out of nuclear bombs. Anyway, I am referring to infinities in observational quantities such as the mass of an electron. So again, I don't even know what to say to that. Again, I already pointed out how you can't really measure the mass of an electron because there's no scale you can put it on. Because it's charged, and everything elemental is charged. There's only charged particles in the elemental universe. All right? I mean, outside of the forces. So there's force, and then all the matter bits are made out of charged particles. Electrons, protons, and neutrons being dipoles made of electron and proton. So there's no way to escape charge. So all you're measuring is charge. You can't possibly measure the actual mass of an electron, which is a problem famously solved by renormalization. Oh, so more just bullshit. More strangled math. We solve the problem when there's absolutely no way to test whether you solved anything at all. You're just making crap up. It's not clear what you mean by Huygens infinity. Well, the theory of Huygens, if you don't understand it, the principle is that there's an infinite number of little tiny bumplet waves created, okay, when a wavefront is obstructed. The next wavefront is created by an infinite number of little microwaves. That's the theory. If they gave it some quantized size, then they would run into problems. So they have to make it infinite because they have to make it back into a straight line again. You can't make a straight line out of a bunch of little bumps. So they have to make it infinite so they can make another straight wave. You can't see how that's just contrived nonsense. And you're not even aware of that fact, that's why Huygens is infinite, is because it can't make a straight wave. It can't make a consistent or continuous wavefront unless it creates an infinity. As it is not a term used by any physicist literature. Right, because they avoid the subject. That's exactly what Huygens proposed, and they're just avoiding it because it doesn't make any sense. Maybe we'd like to clarify. So again, I have to keep correcting history. You do understand that the Young experiment didn't have two patterns in it, right? It didn't have the traditional double slit pattern, that the Young experiment was really just circles, okay, smashed into each other. It wasn't even done with monochromatic light. And yet you think that's a remarkable experiment that gave us huge new insights, when I've pointed out that no, Newton had already done both experiments in the sense that he'd done the single aperture and he'd done the single impediment. Those are essentially both of the experiments that make the two-slit experiment. So he'd basically already done the experiment. We already heard about Newton's rings. I mean, Young's experiment was totally unremarkable. Why do they make such a big deal out of it? It's totally unremarkable. Young knew nothing more than Newton knew. Explain to me what Young knew that Newton didn't know. Explain it to me. And then explain to me why I have to clarify to you how you people can't get the history right. You can't get an understanding of these mechanics and the processing of these mechanics right. Your lecturers are the ones who keep saying the crap that's just not true. That Young was a remarkable experiment when Young was completely unremarkable. That being said, the derivation of the Rayleigh-Jeans law does not depend on any observable quantities being infinite. Well, that's not what I'm talking about, right? Huygens is used for light diffraction. Okay, so you think that's how it happens. You actually think that the speed difference, okay, the speed difference of light traveling through a medium is what's causing the bending? You really think that's what's doing it? You don't think it really has something to do with how many electrons you actually hit and having to transfer the energy from something that's going free through space to something that has to go to an electron, to an electron, to an electron, to it. So it's caught between electrons, and the electrons move much slower than the speed of light, so the movement of the electrons is what's slowing the light down. Of course, it predicts that an observable quantity, the total power radiated, becomes infinite, which is why it is not correct. So again, you're just pointing out how, okay, the Rayleigh-Jeans law doesn't depend on anything, doesn't do this, doesn't do that, but it's wrong anyway, so fuck it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. No, it makes no sense. Energy is not just motion itself. Well, I'm sorry, what we call energy will always be in the sense of the only way you're going to actualize the energy is as motion. So I could argue that everything has the same potential because everything is in the same universe. Okay, so frankly, and all you can do is shield things from that potential. But whatever. Potential energy contributes. Yes, in the form of possessed energy. So again, there's no potential energy unless you fill the battery, there's no potential energy in the battery. The battery has to be filled. The space shuttle has no potential energy until you put the energy in it by putting the momentum in it. The force. Big flame on the outside, little You know, just as much energy going on the inside of the shuttle. The shuttle's atoms are being manipulated by just as much energy as coming out of the back end of the shuttle. Okay, and in fact, the dimensionality of a thermal system does affect its internal energy. The dimensionality. Yeah, well, again, obviously, if you have a box this big and there's stuff bouncing in it, just like the ping pong paddles, right? Duh. Yeah, duh. Closer together, more energy. Further apart, less energy. Yes, that's a real effect. But what's causing the energy is the motion of the force. The ping pong battles. Without the ping pong balls, there's no frickin' energy in the system. The ping pong paddles don't move. Oh, God. There's also a difference in angle. Let's see. Okay, the difference between an electric field, let's refer you to, okay, here. Energy is not motion itself. Thermal systems does affect its internal energy. I would refer you to Bundle's Thermal Physics for an overview on this. Yeah, whatever. You can keep referring me to crap. I'd keep referring you to my videos and the ones pointing out quite clearly that you can mock gravity perfectly explains gravity, and that if you just give the force itself the same character as the electron and proton, that is, a proton force and an electron force, then you can explain why magnets attract and repel. You can have a rational theory instead of an irrational one. Again, go to my subject video. So I'll do the same thing you're doing. Go to my subject videos, and there's a couple of in a playlist. And in that playlist, there's a couple on magnetism. Well, why don't you debunk one of those videos? Why don't you point out how there's a single experiment ever in the history of mankind that points out how this explanation isn't the correct explanation? Any evidence whatsoever proving how that can't be the right answer. That simple answer. Insanely simple compared to your mush. The difference between an electric field and a magnetic field is not just factors of R. I didn't say they were factors of R in the sense that the difference between a dipole field and a monopole field. So again, get it right, which you just didn't do. A magnet pointed north-south is different than a magnet pointed north-south. North-south is different than north-south, horizontally, right? You can understand that, right? There's an R difference. You're just talking about fields of monopoles. Well, no, I clearly pointed out the difference between a dipole and a monopole. Clearly. So that's just nonsense. There's also a difference in angular dependence, I might add. There's no such thing, okay? The dependence is clearly on the fact that the force is attractive and one is repulsive to each end of the magnet. So the ends of the magnet are being repelled and attracted inversely by two forces coming from essentially the same point, all right? And that means the magnet has to turn. Yeah, it has a different effect. And as it turns, the force gets stronger, not weaker. Just like if I have two planets and I put you in the middle and I just shove you one tiny little bit in one direction, you're automatically going to the other planet. You can't go a little bit. I can't move you a little bit and you just stay there. No, because as you get closer to the one planet, the gravity gets stronger and stronger and stronger, attracting you. And as you get further from the other planet, its pull on you gets weaker and weaker and weaker at the same time. Duh. Okay. Let's see. Electric and magnetic fields act in fundamentally different ways. I would argue, no, they don't. The actual vector of force is exactly the same. The force vectors are exactly the same. All you're doing is changing how diluted they are. Dipoles are diluted fields. Monopoles are undiluted fields. The electric force on a charge is proportional to the electric field it is moving in, while the magnetic force is proportional to the cross product of the velocity of the magnetic field, which doesn't say anything. It doesn't explain what's causing the effect. And if you understand that the cause is that the poles of the magnet are radiating essentially an opposite force, then you can understand, okay, why that force gets diluted. This is not what is being said here. Honestly, I'm not sure how I can how to can confuse yourself. Honestly, I'm not sure how to can confuse yourself to the point of reaching this conclusion. No, I'm sorry. I'm saying Maxwell is the one who was confused, okay? I mean, obviously bisecting the speed of light into something called the permeability of space and the permutivity of space, or whatever it is, epsilon zero and mu zero, two made-up quantities. They never existed as measured constants. You do understand that, right? And somehow, magically, they equal the speed of light just by coincidence. Now, isn't that a little bit of too stretching credulity? That they just made up two numbers that just happen to fit? Well, they obviously fit only because in the end, the two fields are always in the math. So if there's a B field, the E field is automatically assumed, and it's assumed to be a reciprocal, and so that's how it ends up matching the speed of light. So the proportions are always there in Maxwell's equations by bisecting the speed of light. But there's no reason to bisect the speed of light into mu zero and epsilon zero. That's just horse shit. Okay, that's just mathematical gimmickry. So again, why don't you explain where they did some controlled experiment to ascertain the permeability of space? And it wasn't just a made-up constant that made the math work. That's all it was for. It's just a constant created to make the math work. Period. It's just for conversion purposes, to put it into newtons per square meter, or whatever the functions are. And that's all it's there for. And so, of course, it fits. Of course, it's right. But it's only right in the context of recognizing that you have to add both quantities to create proportion to the speed of light. But they're made up constants. They weren't measured constants. Nope, it's an explanation of the Rayleigh-Jeans law. I think it was made quite clear. Well, so again, I'm not going to 4422, whatever, but whatever. The Rayleigh-Jeans law. I bet you it's no fucking law at all. I bet you that's just a pile of crap. Or it's something just really basic. At no point do I claim that this video contains proof of photons are waves. Well, you claim your physics has such proof. And that's the whole point of my dissection of that proof. I've played all these professors making their claims. This is nail-in-the-coffin evidence. And I'm saying, well, no, it's not nail-in-the-coffin evidence. It's not even close to nail-in-the-coffin evidence. So they exaggerate. You live on their exaggerations. And then you claim, I'm not exaggerating. No, of course you are exaggerating, because you're defending their exaggerations. Where's the nail-in-the-coffin evidence? There isn't any. Okay, they are not. So again, all I can do is say, look, I can play Professor Lewin, who loves Huygens because Huygens was Dutch and Professor Lewin is Dutch, right? Clearly, it's just that simple. He's just a racist, essentially, right? So he thinks Huygens is right. And then I can point you to Richard Feynman, who's saying, basically, well, Huygens is just archaic nonsense. There's some other real... the important thing is the relationships of the mathematics. And we don't even need to think about causes. But certainly Huygens is a silly cause. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, there's no point in using the word wave when you don't mean wave. So at least Feynman's at least honest enough to say, there's no point in calling something that has none of the properties of a wave a wave. It's a frequency. It's not a wave. Okay, what are you really struggling with? I'm not struggling at all. What I'm struggling with is idiocracy. What I'm struggling with is a society of human beings that seems compelled to always gravitate towards religion. You've turned physics into a religion. It's full of spooky action. It's full of hobgoblins, quarks, gluons, all kinds of crap that you've made up, essentially. You've created dark matter, complete contrivance, quite obviously only exists because your mathematics doesn't work. Okay, your mathematics theories, you see evidence that your theory is incomplete. And when you see the evidence of your incompleteness, you sit there and quite obviously try to fix it with a completely made-up gremlin. You're just making it up. Oh, there's some special substance in the universe that has all the properties we need and none of the properties we don't want. It's magic. I mean, it's so obviously made up. So I'm not the one struggling. Clearly, your physics is struggling. If you have to make up something called dark matter, you're struggling. That's the definition of struggling with your theory, when you do something so preposterous and obviously unscientific as just make up a fake variable. The frickin' dark matter variable. Where here is the concept of how we can treat light as both a particle and a wave. So this isn't about treating, it's about describing. So again, you either understand that physics is physics. There's one reality. You can accurately describe it or you can inaccurately describe it. My contention is that you people are inaccurately describing it. You're not being honest that you're making it up. Okay, that you really don't have any evidence that really works any of the ways you're describing it. Okay, and you're just not honest about it. You claim it's the most proven theory in the history of mankind. You make all these claims about how this is the truth, and you really don't have any evidence to back up any of those claims. Indeed, so did physicists for a very long time. I'm just saying, you're saying physicists believed it was both a particle and a wave. I don't think they did do that. They either were wavical people or they were particle people. They fell into one or the other camps, okay? And that's the truth. And even Einstein very, very reluctantly, okay, made a concession in whatever the 47 or some, whatever, I can't remember when it was, where he basically made a concession because everybody was harping at him. And so he basically just made this stupid statement where he said, yes, well, sometimes you can act like a wave and sometimes you can act like a particle. But let's understand, Einstein, 2 years before he died, said, I've been studying photons for 50 years and I haven't improved my understanding one iota. That's what he said. So he said his 50 years being involved in quantum mechanics was a complete failure in understanding photons. He didn't gain anything from this nonsensical voyage down wacky lane. He still was just as clueless. And yet you're hyping it as if you have all the clues. Indeed, so did physicists for a long time. It really looked quantum field theory to resolve the issue. So, okay, so he just keeps saying this quantum field theory has solved something. When, as I understand it, it's created more problems than it has solutions. That you're no closer to anything called unification at all. So this is just more hype. Oh yeah, we've got the right answer. It's quantum field theory. I haven't even heard quantum field theory described the same way by two different physicists again. So just more crap. Okay, there is a nice explanation on stack exchange. You mean the place where they delete your comment if you challenge a single one of their fundamental premises? It's it's like going to the Pope. Oh, let's go ask the Pope to explain it. Amazing bullshit there. The cowards, the biggest cowards of physics hang out at that stack exchange. They can't deal with anybody asking any question outside the boundaries of their religion. Don't challenge our religion, and certainly don't bring any evolution theories here because we're not interested. Oh, you people are disgusting. Yes, it is. That's why we average the function over all angles. So again, more talk about averages, and yet you're talking about being precise. I think you are getting a little ahead of yourself here. No, I think you're way behind. Okay, period. So again, he's just talking to time codes now, so there's not much point. It's not all clear what you mean by straight line force. Oh, he doesn't understand. I'm supposed to understand what point source means, or point particle. What do you mean? It doesn't have any shape or size. It has no volume and it has no shape. I'm supposed to understand that. I'm supposed to be able to, oh yeah, I can imagine that, no problem. And yet you can't understand straight line force. Quanta moving at a straight line vector. Tiny little thing, straight line, point A to point B. Feynman would tell you, photons move from point A to point B unless they hit something. That's how it works. Yeah. Just amazing. All right, it's not clear what I mean by straight line force, as this is not common terminology. Yes, exactly. You people you've left the rational building. Okay, the straight line force is the radial force that Faraday and Maxwell essentially describe as the cause of the field line effect. So the field lines themselves are basically being created by radial lines coming off the thing that has charge or the thing that has magnetism. Those radial lines create a pressure at locations. Those become the lines of force. And obviously, new radial lines are always perpendicular to those lines, which means if you're always perpendicular to a line, that means it's a straight line. You get it? See, the lines of force are essentially proportional to the object, and if you're going perpendicular off those lines of force, you can't help but end up back to the center of gravity of the object producing it. So it's a radial force. I don't know. I can't do, I mean, straight line force seems to me so obvious. It's like when they draw a picture of the sun and they have little lines coming off of it. Yeah, the little rays. Yes, that's exactly it. It's little rays radiating from the center of its gravity. As this is not common terminology used to define anything in physics literature. Amazing. And well, that's why you're so freaking clueless, because you don't understand the most basic function is the fact that it is straight line force. That's why Mach gravity works. Mach gravity can't work if things can go around other stuff. If the pressure can go around, okay, then there's no gravity in Mach gravity. It's the whole idea that the thing can only travel straight line vectors that makes it possible to have shadows. All right. This is already clearly stated. Are you not paying attention? So again, he's just arguing time. I'm really not going to play time codes. Yes, do you really expect me to play all these time codes, or what? Do you really expect me to remember what I said at 46.22? Come on. Yes, they are. Standing waves are not defined by being on ropes or some other medium. I'm just saying that the whole wave mechanic thing, okay, is really just about harmonics. All right, it's about distance and speed, and that's all. And there's no real constructive and destructive. You can't destroy energy. Remember that one? You can't destroy it. It can't go nowhere. It has to move somewhere else. So even in the double slit experiment, even if you think it's photon plus photon equals no photon, you do understand, right, that that doesn't really happen. The two photons don't annihilate. No, that the photon either goes to this, either goes right or it goes left to make the constructive interference. It has to go somewhere. Anyway, I'm not sure why you think this. Here's a paper where it explores cavity modes of electromagnetic waves. So again, I already understand cavities, and I understand harmonics, and I already understand that the whole thing that creates tipping points. And I've already gone on in arguments about the fact how critical it is that you have these precise distances where the effects are magnified, because essentially they're being stored. So constructive interference often just means the energy is kept in the system. It isn't removed from the system. So, and destructive just means that through the collision you end up with vectors that won't stay in the system. You break the reflectivity. So it's like the ping pong paddle argument again. If you can throw new ping pong balls in that are harmonious with the motion of the existing ones, okay, so the ping pong balls don't hit each other, then you'll create more pressure. But if you throw ones in that hit the other ones, like one ball's going this way and one ball's going that way, well, that means something has to give. Something that energy is going to end up being shot in some other direction. And if it goes shot in some other direction, it won't hit the paddles and it's out of the system. That's the argument. So often constructive and destructive means merely keeping the energy in a system or removing the energy from the system. Let's see. Vectors in K space and virtual photons are different things, says you. I mean, prove it. What's the point of even saying anything? I'm saying both things are just contrivances. They don't really have anything to do with accurately describing reality. They have to do with creating fake little abstract models in multi-dimensions that you haven't even proven existing. Again, there's no fourth dimension. There's no time dimension. Time isn't a dimension. Time is an event. Time merely exists because things don't happen as you think, spontaneously. As soon as things don't happen spontaneously and instantaneously, well, you're stuck with time. And if everything happened instantaneously, then there's no time. But it's not a dimension. It's a function. Photons certainly do exist. Well, again, nothing statement. Yes, in order to detect a photon, you need it to interact with something. Yes, an electron. Luckily, photons interact via electromagnetic force. No, they don't. They interact by hitting an electron. Sorry, and giving it momentum. So we can detect them via their interaction with electrons. And again, their interaction is either to be absorbed or reflected. That's all they can do. They're either absorbed and the electron moves, or they're not absorbed and the electron doesn't move. Photons only couple electric charges, so you cannot detect them via their interactions with something that does not have electric charge. So again, more nonsense. Charge is just a word, so just use the word charge. Don't bother with the word electric, because guess what? Okay, protons and electrons are the magnetic monopoles that you don't understand exist, but yes, they clearly, obviously exist. They are the magnetic monopoles. Charge is a magnetic function. I am afraid this is not made up. Yes, it is. It's the same analysis that allows us to construct whatever device you're reading this on now. Oh, again, so he thinks they made the internet with quantum physics. More just horseshit exaggeration. Again, I refer you to solid-state physics textbook. No, I already read solid-state physics. I did it, okay? I was there. I used a laser, right? A laser diode back when they cost $40 and lasted 8 hours. And I read the books on all the, putting the little pieces of silicon together and doing all the little bullshit, the PNP and all that kind of bullshit. You don't need any quantum physics for this shit. Again, the first phototransistor was essentially already built way back in Einstein's day when they were doing the photoelectric effect. They would already had invented essentially the phototransistor. They just didn't know it. Now, this is just such crap. Side note. Infinitesimals are well defined, whatever that even means. As I state, the Rayleigh-Jeans law, so he brings that up again, derived in this video. So it's just a derivation. So just more nonsense derivations that don't have anything to do with solving anything real, and certainly don't have anything to do with, you're still stuck with variables that cause effects. Okay, and so you think mathematics is highly precise and highly provides a lot of information. No, it's just a formalization of what we already know. We already know there's certain variables. And again, I'll just point out how silly some of these equations are. In the double slit experiment, you break the equation essentially by changing what the value is. That is, now you're doing the width of the impediment, and now you've lost the variable of the width of the slit. There's no place to put it in the equation. I mean, it's just so silly to sit there and say this is the way to understand reality. I have already quoted papers which fit observed data to black body spectra. Again, but it doesn't prove what's causing the effect. So again, you just keep telling me that you've proven a cause. You haven't proven anything called a cause. Okay, I'm not sure what made you think this is an explanation of quantum mechanics. It's Rayleigh-Jeans law. So you just keep saying the same shit over and over again. And I'll just point out to you where, again, you say you're sure that two radar guns are making photons interfere with each other when exactly the same mathematical geometry dictates it's jamming. And yet you're certain it's not jamming. No, it can't possibly be jamming. The two signals can't possibly be jammed. No, it's photon interference. How do you know that? How have you proven it's not jamming? Oh, you haven't. Feynman discusses black body radiation in detail here. Okay, well, fine. I asked for it, so good. But I'll see what he thinks. What he thinks is more important. Newton's glass, lenses, the two-slit experiment. I'm just saying those are all the ones he uses in his lectures as evidence. Alright, so that's finally the end. So we will copy that link. I mean, I did read like, you know, half of the Feynman book, and it started getting too boring, actually. It started off kind of